Hey, mamas, you are listening to the Motherhood is Ghetto podcast. We all know motherhood can be a beautiful thing, but girl, it can also be ghetto. Join me as we discuss some of the best and worst parts of being a mom raising kids, all while trying to figure out this thing called life. This ghetto is a safe space, mamas. So, welcome to the hood. Hey, mamas, welcome back to another episode of Motherhood is Ghetto. My name is Joy, and how y'all doing out there? If y'all doing all right, say amen. Amen. Um, it's been a minute since I posted an episode. My last episode was on October 30th. So if you haven't already checked out that episode, stop this one and then go listen to that one and then come back to this one. Amen. Um, but I missed y'all as always when I take little breaks. I hope you guys are doing all right. It is the holiday season. The holidays are in full swing. So that means gifts, parties, get togethers, family, gift wrapping, stress, anxiety, all that good stuff. So, hopefully, this season you are taking some time out just for you, just to do something special for yourself. Because as mothers, we know that the holiday season can be very stressful. It can be very busy, making sure that we get our kids everything that they ask for or have on their Christmas list. Some of us are even making a way out of no way. Amen. Those of us that are struggling financially, still finding a way to make Christmas happen for our children. So wherever you're at in the holiday season, or whatever your story is for the holiday season, just know that I see you, and just do what you can with what you have and try to make it the best holiday season yet. So, but yeah, I wanted to put out another episode. I was thinking about just taking a break for the rest of the year, but I was like, no, I kind of don't want to do that because I kind of want to. I always say every episode that I want to be more consistent with you guys, and I really am, and I really do. It's just life just comes at me so fast most times, and before I know it, like a month has already gone by, and I'm like, dang it, I have not done an episode. But I promise that I'm going to be better at that and try to be more consistent with my podcast and with my episodes, and then also to bring you guys some new stuff in 2024. I decided that I do want to have sort of like a book club here on the podcast where between episodes we're reading a book, something that's going to be beneficial for us mothers, either kind of like to open us up to different ideas about motherhood, or just a fictional story that just takes us somewhere, and we can dive into a story and kind of get away from you know our lives just for a moment while we're on the podcast together and immerse ourselves in a story. So I do want to do that for 2024. Also, too, I'm wanting and I'm hoping to have guests on my podcast 2024. Other mothers, we could discuss topics and stuff like that, kind of share our point of views and stuff. So that's kind of where my head's at for 2024 with this podcast. But I was on Spotify, and you know how Spotify does the Wrapped at the end of every year? You can see, what if you're a creator on Spotify, you can see how many people are listening to you, what your podcast is rated, all that good stuff, and your most listened to episode, your growth over the year. And mamas, I just want to give you guys a big, big, big thank you for listening to this podcast, supporting this podcast. It, wow. I was looking at my wrapped and I was like, oh my God, like, y'all really fuck with this podcast. Y'all really mess with me. And I'm truly honored and I appreciate every single one of you that take the time out of your day to listen to my podcast and let me be a part of your day. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping to do big things with Motherhood is Ghetto. I I I have goals and I only feel comfortable sharing it with you all. Like I really do hope to take this podcast to a network one day, like maybe like I know there's like groups where like there's like the Black Love Network or Black Love Podcast Network and there I believe there's a Essence Podcast Network. So I'm hoping to take this podcast to a network so that way I can have a home and where my podcasts are there and you can just it's a network you can go and get my podcast. So that's one of my goals with this podcast. But thank you to everyone who supports, who listens, who shares, who likes, who follows. All that stuff really does help me and it means the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So what's going on? Like I said, life has just been lifing for me as usual. My kids, they're doing all right. Of course, it's Christmas and they've all given me their Christmas list and I'm this year is like this year is a humble Christmas for me or I have a humble Christmas in my head because last year I really did try to do it really big for my kids, you know, because their dad had just died and I really wanted them to feel happy and I wanted them to feel loved. So I went all out last Christmas. But this Christmas, I kind of wanted to, you know, keep it cool and casual, be very humble. And this year, it really wasn't about how many presents are under the tree or making my tree look full of gifts and all that stuff. I really just wanted to, you know, get meaningful things for my children, things that they really would want and find useful for them. But also too, in the process of buying gifts for my kids and whatnot, I had to kind of remember with my sons because they're 9 and 10 years old. I had to remember that my sons are still little kids, and and all my kids in general, because they've been through so much and because they've helped me so much through, you know, my healing journey and helped me to really be a better mom to them. Sometimes I forget that they're just kids. So when I'm thinking of gifts to get for them, it's like all these, you know, sophisticated things. And I had to take a step back. I'm like, wait, I still got children. Like, I still have kids. And especially with my boys, I'm like, my boys, they still enjoy toys, even though I've thrown away all their toys at this point, and they really don't have any real toys per se. I had to remember that, you know, my kids are still kids. And yeah, so, and then also, too, you know, I've shout out to the people who are still checking in with my kids, making sure they're all right, all that good stuff. I really appreciate that. It means the world to me. And yeah, so this holiday season, we keeping it on the humble ski. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to overdo it. I'm not trying to overspend. I'm not trying to get gifts for, you know, random gifts just for people just to say that I got them a gift. I'm not doing any of that. I do feel that, you know, I feel like anyone in my family, if they need something, they could always ask me, and I'm always going to come through for them. And I feel like this holiday season, that's enough. And if, you know, and if I feel like it or I have the means to get some extra gifts for some extra people, then I'll do that. But if I don't feel like it or I don't have the means, I'm not going to do it. So that's pretty much my mindset this holiday. I really just want to have a nice, chill time with my kids and really just spend time with them and all that good stuff. So, um, So, today's episode, we are going to talk about a little dilemma that my daughter had over the last week, and I want to share with you how I, as a mother, handled this dilemma or this issue, and then um, either on Instagram or in the question box in this podcast if you're listening on Spotify. You can kind of let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you would have handled the situation or if you thought how I handled the situation was cool. And we can just discuss it. Um, so let me set the scene for you guys. So my daughter, um, ever since she was I think maybe 7 or 8 years old. Um, she's had this thing with having something over her ears, like at all times. So it started with headbands. So in my business, I have an accessory business. Well, that's how it first started out. And then I used to sell these headbands. And so I gave her the headband and she would put it on her head, but she would like have the headband over her ears. You know how some, like normally when we put on a headband, we tuck it behind our ears, but she would put it over her ears, which was fine. And then I remember one holiday season, my husband had brought her some reindeer earmuffs from work or something like that. And they had little reindeer antlers at the top, but they were earmuffs. And so she would wear those all the time. Even after Christmas, she'd wear them to school. And don't you dare ask her to take them off because she would have a fit. And she was like, I just want them. I just want them on my ears. So and now she usually wears earbuds or she'll wear headphones, like over the ear headphones, and she wears them all throughout the day, except for when, she's in class because she can't have them all in class. But when she's at home, she wears them, and if we go out anywhere, she has them either around her neck or somewhere close to her ears. So recently, my daughter, she was at school and she texted me and she said someone stole her headphones. And I was like, okay, let's make sure that's not the case. Make sure, check your backpack, check the lost and found. Maybe you dropped them and you didn't realize you dropped them. Check with your teacher. Maybe your teacher found them. And so she did all that and she said that she still didn't find her headphones. And she was like, yeah, I think someone stole them. And I was like, okay, when was the last time you had them? And she was like, I had them on my backpack. They were sitting on top of my backpack. And then when I went to leave to get my backpack, they weren't there. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, maybe they'll show up, check the lost and found again, like the next day. Maybe they'll show up. Maybe a teacher has them, and you just, tomorrow when you go back to school, check with all your teachers. So, um, nobody had the headphones that she could find. And so we kind of just, charged it to the game. And she was like, I know, someone stole my headphones. And I told her, I was like, well, kids are stupid sometimes. So, if another student did steal them, they're going to show up to school with them. Like, that's just what kids do because they're not very smart. So, not all kids are very smart sometimes. Not saying all kids are dumb, but sometimes kids are not the brightest and they don't think things through. So, I told her I was like if someone did steal your headphones at that school, then they're going to show up with them. I'm pretty sure. So, that ended up happening. That day finally came, and it was about maybe a week after she said she had lost her headphones. And she was in class and she saw a girl with headphones on that looked a lot like hers. So she texts me and she says, Mom, I think I see the person who has my headphones on, but I can't just go up to her and snatch them because I'm not 100% sure they're mine. And I was like, okay, are you sure they're yours? You know, and she was like, yeah, like she's wearing them right now. And so I was like, okay, what is the best way to advise my daughter? And I thought of all the things. I thought to tell her to confront the person. I thought to tell her to tell her teacher so that way the teacher could get involved. And then I thought to tell her, like, go up to her and get your headphones back. Like, all those thoughts went through my head, all of them. Um, but what I settled on telling her was that, you know, she caught you slipping, baby girl. She got your headphones, and you have money so that way you can buy you another pair. So don't even trip. And when I said that to her, I was really coming from an angle like, okay, are the headphones really worth you, disrupting class, possibly getting into an altercation with this girl, you know. And I really had to ask my daughter, like, what does it mean for you? Like, how important is it for you to get those headphones back? But at the same time, that decision that I made or what I advised her of, the reason why I did it was because at the end of the day, I know my daughter. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So, what I know about my daughter is that she can be very careless. So I know for a fact that she left her headphones somewhere unattended where they weren't in her sight and somebody caught her slipping. Now, does that make it okay that that person took her headphones because they caught my daughter slipping? No. It doesn't make it okay and it doesn't make it right. But I know from experience with my daughter that she can be very careless. And this isn't her first set of headphones. This is probably her fifth pair of headphones because she either loses them or she breaks them. So I knew the score when she said her headphones came up missing. And I was like, yeah, like I know my dog. I know that someone didn't walk up to her and take and snatch her headphones off her face or out of her hands because she wouldn't let that fly. So I knew off the rip that it was something she did that was careless that made her, lose her headphones. So, and knowing good and well that, you know, if she went up to the girl and said, "Hey, those are my headphones," I know in my mind the girl's gonna be like, "No, they're not." Like, and it's gonna start a whole big back and forth. And then also too, since my daughter couldn't definitively prove that they were hers, like her name wasn't written on them, she didn't have her name etched in them or a recognizable blemish that, only she knew about. Like it was literally a pair of headphones that she wouldn't have been able to prove were hers because even though they were kind of unique, but also too, like she bought them from Walmart. So any kid could have the same pair of headphones at Walmart, or if they bought them from Walmart too. So I knew that it was going to be hard for her to prove that those were her headphones. So that's why I decided on just telling her, like, you're going to have to charge that to the game, baby girl. But let this be a lesson for you, not to let this kind of thing happen again. You need to, like, you can't trust everybody. And not everybody is your friend. And not everybody means, no, not everybody has your best interests at heart. So So I told her, I was like, let's go ahead and just charge this. She caught you slipping this time, but now you know not to let it happen again. And her response to me was, "You right, fair." Like, yeah, she did. She caught me slipping. I'm gonna just give me another pair of headphones. So I did pose the question on my Facebook to like my friends and family that I know are parents, or kind of have that parental role, or have been in those situations before. And they had all the same suggestions and thoughts that I had before responding to my daughter, which made me feel good, that as mothers we all think the same. But what I came to the conclusion of is that, of course, like, as parents, like, we don't want anyone getting one up on our children, or taking advantage of our children, or stealing from our children, putting their hands on our children. Like, we don't want any of that type of stuff. And when things like that happen, we want the other person to be accountable. Like, and I 100% get that. But in this situation, I didn't feel like I was the one to impose that accountability on that child. I didn't feel at that moment it was my job to force my daughter to hold that person accountable, or even go out of my way by going to school, calling to school to make someone else's child accountable. I feel like, because of the circumstance, like I said, my daughter can be careless, and I know in this situation she was careless. So in my eyes, she really doesn't have anyone to blame. She's a part of what happened. She had a hand in it too, because she wasn't watching her stuff and taking care of her stuff. So there's a portion of accountability that needs to be placed on my daughter. And so that's what I did as her mother. I placed accountability on her for being careless. So no, we're not gonna fuss and argue and fight, because she was texting me to ask me, what should I do. And I like I said, I just know my daughter, and I just felt at that moment, they were both in the wrong. They both played a part in her headphones getting taken. So my daughter had to accept her part in the situation. And that other person, that other girl who has her headphones, like, I just feel like I'm not her parent, so it's not up to me to make sure she's held accountable for anything. She caught my baby slipping. And it wasn't like I said, it wasn't an issue where, like, Genesis saw her take the headphones, or she took the headphones off my daughter's head. So I knew it was going to be hard for my daughter to prove that those headphones were hers. Even if I had pictures of her with the headphones, still, there's nothing, that she didn't see her take them, so she can't prove anything. And I knew that. And so I advised my daughter the best way that I knew how, knowing the circumstances and knowing that my daughter is careless. So, and then at the end of it, I did, when she told me, like, you're right, I'm gonna let it go. And I even doubled back and I asked her again. I said, if you don't want to let it go, you don't have to. Like, if you want if you want me to, call the school, or if you want to bring it up with a teacher, like, I'm rocking with you. So whatever you want to do, like, it's your decision. And she was like, no, she's like, I'm just gonna let it go. She's like, it's all right, I'll get another pair of headphones. And then in that moment too, I felt good, because it was a decision that she made, and she didn't want to press the issue anyway, even though I knew she wouldn't, because, like, again, I know my daughter. I know how, like, when she wants to be confrontational, and when she doesn't want to be confrontational. So I was cool with that, and I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm rocking with you, you know. Um, But yeah, so like I said, I got a lot of feedback from other mothers about the situation, and I appreciate all that feedback, and all those thoughts ran through my head. I was like, "Girl, snatch some headphones from around her ears right now. Get your teachers involved. You want me to come up to the school? Like we could settle this. Like all that stuff went through my head, but I just didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was the person to be holding that child accountable for anything. I can only be responsible for my child. And that's really how I look at every situation. Unless like somebody comes up to my child and like is, bullying them or physically doing harm to them, or anything like that, then yes, of course, I'm going to have a different approach. I'm going to have a different reaction. But in this particular scenario, I just knew. I was like, girl, you and that girl had played a part in you losing your headphones. So you got to take accountability and accept your part. So yeah. So that was my dilemma this week with my child. So let me know what you guys think. What would you guys have done or advised your child to do in that situation? So your child lost something, headphones, a game, phone, whatever the case may be, and then your child sees someone else with it at their school, another student with it, and they know it's theirs, and they call you or text you to find out what they should do. So, what would you advise them as their parent? And why would you advise them of what you advise them of? So, can't wait to hear from you guys. You guys can always sound off on my Instagram at motherhood_ghetto. You can DM me. You can also reply in the Q&A box. If you're listening on Spotify, you can reply in the Q&A box under this episode and give me your feedback. And lastly, don't forget to like and share this podcast with anyone you think may find it helpful. If you haven't already, give the podcast a follow on whatever platform that you're listening on. And again, mamas, thank you so much for listening and rocking with me this year. 2023 has been amazing. I can't wait to see what 2024 has for us. And in the event that I do not post another episode before the end of 2023, I hope you all have a very, very, very fun, safe holiday filled with lots of love, filled with lots of happiness. I pray your 2024 brings you all the things that you've hoped and prayed for. I hope, your dreams manifest. I hope you reach all of your goals. And I hope that your babies flourish and they thrive. Amen. And I hope that you flourish and thrive as a mother and keep doing your best shit. Okay. Amen. But thank you guys again for listening. And until next time, mamas. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Don't forget to follow the podcast and share with anyone who you think may enjoy it. And follow me on Instagram at motherhood_ghetto. Also, feel free to DM me if you have any experiences, opinions, or views on motherhood you'd like me to share on the podcast. Until next time, mamas.